Speaking of a little too big, the second story is this really, really bizarre story it kicked off last week when Tucker Carlson accused the NSA of spying on him because information was leaked that he said could only have been leaked from his private email. We've got a little more on that.
Last Monday, we told you that the Biden administration's largest intelligence gathering agency, the NSA, had been reading my private emails. Even saying that out loud is weird. It's one of those segments we never thought we would do ever. But the country has changed that much that fast. And honestly, the whole thing was kind of shocking. The government was spying on us? Come on. It seemed crazy. But it's true. And no one in Washington appeared to be shocked in the slightest. In fact, the usual shills right after our segment had a ready explanation for it. Either it never happened at all, they said, just a cable news show lying for ratings, or there must have been a good reason it happened. And they began furiously making excuses for why the NSA did it. A powerful, heavily politicized spy agency surveilling journalists who've been critical of the regime? No problem. It's perfectly normal. Just don't call it spying. But it's not normal at all. It is third world. And as we told you repeatedly, it did happen. Now that has been confirmed.
All right, so just to clarify, Tucker had reached out to Kremlin contacts about getting an interview with Putin. Tucker is a journalist. He interviews people. That's what they do. Walter, it seems like most of media is just like, yeah, big damn whoop, he shouldn't have reached out, or he's a Russian operative. I mean, just the usual nonsense that we've gotten, over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, well, okay, here's the thing about this story. The NSA loves it. The NSA, despite sometimes seeming like the bad guy, loves the message that, yep, we can do anything to anyone at any time, and we don't have to be candid about it. They let Tucker make the accusation. They then let him be called a liar. They then didn't interfere when it turns out to be true. And, we see that the thing he was being spied for was trying to get an interview with one of the other maybe 2 world leaders who run a great nuclear power. I mean, what is more legitimate journalism than trying to interview, Putin? They make it sound as though he was doing a dead drop in Marcy Park, trying to pass microfilm. My God, he was trying to get an interview with a world leader.
Yeah. What is totally flabbergasting about all of this, I have never seen in unison so many certified blue check marks on Twitter, mainstream media, run to the defense of the NSA. I don't want to have these conspiratorial thoughts like they must, the media must be working with intelligence. It's either that or they're absolute ignorant and have totally forgotten about the largest illegal domestic surveillance program that the NSA was carrying out a few years ago, a decade ago, and they pretend now that that could never happen again. And certainly if it does happen, they've made a carve out for Fox News and Tucker Carlson. I've never seen such willful blindness or deliberate misinformation from the mainstream media, all running cover for the NSA, given the NSA's history.
But Viva, let's not forget, who was the guy that was in charge of the NSA when he was under oath and they asked him if we're spying on Americans, and he said not wittingly as he was scratching the top of his head, which is a tip-off from Seinfeld. Who was the guy? Who was that? Does anyone remember?
He works for CNN now.
Yeah.
I mean, he works for CNN.
Yeah, it was clever. Yeah.
You are not required to be. This is not a conspiracy. No one's hiding it. That's why I say they loves it. The NSA loves having its former director on CNN. It loves taking the largest cable news personality in the world and making him sit in the hot seat while it, doesn't, that's for me to know and you to find out. We're the NSA.
Carlin, is that like the real stamp on this thing right there, that they can just do it in front of us? There's nothing Tucker can do. There's nothing the rest of us can do. And as Viva says, we can also just have a bunch of blue check journalists that basically applaud them for it.
Well, I mean, listen, Walter has just scared the heck out of me because I'm 100% sure he's correct that the NSA is loving this entire thing. And I think it just goes it says so much about how far the divisions in this world have gone, where, people who maybe 10 years ago would have been completely against any of this nonsense are now like, well, it's okay as long as it's directed at my political opponents. Like, people have forgotten what the slippery slope is and what it means. If they can do it to your political opponents, that means they can do it to you.
Right. The lefties were pretty upset when Snowden was leaking all of the stuff about what the government was doing. Somehow they care a little bit less when it's Tucker.